Council, nice to see you. We are ready to call the order. All right, let's call this meeting of the Planning Commission for the Town of Munster for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 to order. Please set your phones on stun and let's all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, for indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Anderson, nice to see you. We call roll, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Tulowitzki.
Present.
Mr. Speck.
Present.
Mr. Raffin.
Here.
Ms. Mellon.
Present.
Dr. Kulturitis appears absent. Ms. Brannigan appears absent. Mr. Baker.
Present. We have a quorum. Moving right along. Next is the approval of minutes from May 9th, 2023. Modifications, changes, motions. What say you?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motions, there a second?
I'll second the motion.
And a second, any discussion? 1, 2, 3, be there ain't none. Mr. Anderson, do we still have to do roll call for things like this?
When you have this many people online, you do.
So roll call, please.
Mr. Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Mr. Speck.
Yes.
Mr. Raffin.
Yes.
Ms. Mellon.
Yes.
And Mr. Baker.
Yes, moving right along. Next up is preliminary hearings, PC 23-012. Mr. Adi from the Community Foundation of Northwest Indiana is requesting approval of amendment to the ordinance 1206 CFNI Business Plan Unit Development to accommodate addition to the existing diagnostic center building in Block 2. Background, Mr. Anderson.
I yield the floor to Ms. Christensen.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone again.
Ms. Christensen, soon, nice to see you.
Thank you. From Pendleton,
Introduce
Indiana.
yourself, please.
Introduce myself. I'm Rachel Christensen. I am your on-call planner until you guys fill your planning director role. So I will be walking you through all of the staff reports tonight. Was everyone here at the last meeting that I was at? Because my first meeting was the May meeting. So this is my second rodeo now with you guys for Plan Commission. So it's great to be here. Are we ready?
Yep.
And Mr. Baker, I am ready tonight with my staff presentations and my staff reports. So we're going to do this. All right. So we do have petition number or docket number 23-012. If you can scroll down to page 2, please. You can see an overview of the site. This is specifically to block 2 of the site, which is the highlighted in blue area.
Rachel, excuse me a second. Just let the record show that Dr. Kulturitis is attending. Thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
go ahead.
No problem. On this site, you can see there's one parcel, but there's a lot 1 that's more on the left-hand side of the blue shaded area, and then lot 2 is on the right-handed side. This is an amendment to the CFNI business plan unit development to accommodate the addition to the existing diagnostic center in block 2 of the development. This PUD is currently governed by ordinance 1206, which established the CFNI business planned unit development off of Powers Drive. This is approximately a 4.9 acre parcel. This ordinance was adopted way back in January of 2003 by the Munster Town Council on the recommendation of the Plan Commission. So this is an oldie but goodie. There was a permit pulled in 2022 for an interior remodel, and this required the site to have the landscaping updated to meet the town's new landscape standards. So this is one that had been seen somewhat recently in 2022. But today what we're going to be looking at is the addition to the east side of that diagnostic center building. It's going to accommodate an expansion to the MRI suite and the CT scan suite for a total addition of approximately 2,000 square feet. Jill or Dustin, if you guys could scroll down to page 13 of the staff report, it will show a little cutout version of where the improvements are taking place.
So this is a preliminary hearing for a 2,000 square foot addition.
Yes,
Thank you. Is it between the two buildings? Is that how that's gonna set up?
no, it's not. If we can get the centered a little bit, you can see on the building to the south. Yep, right there where the cursor is being hovered over. So that 2,000 square foot addition, it will remove it will take out 11 parking spaces from the site. There's going to be an addition of a chiller area that will be fenced in. And then, of course, that CT scan suite and then the MRI suite will be included on the interior of that addition. This one, since it is an old PUD, it was kind of hard to go back and see what exactly was all approved with the original PUD. The changes that are being asked are not very substantial changes. You can see that, you know, some of the parking will be removed, but they are putting a sidewalk around the addition. There is fencing that's proposed around the chiller. As we move forward through the process, we're going to be asking the petitioner to provide more details on what that fencing will look like. There is a little bit of a discrepancy on the plan as submitted right now that the sidewalk on one area says it's a 9-foot sidewalk. In another spot, it says it's a 6-foot or a 5-foot sidewalk. So we'll need things like that kind of clarified once we get to public hearing. However, the original 2002 site plan, when that was submitted, building 2 had 127 parking spaces that were required with that structure. When the 2022 landscape plan was reviewed and approved, there were 148 parking spaces that were approved as part of that plan. Today, with the proposed site plan, it would reduce that number to 137. Just using our Munster character-based code, it requires 5.7 spaces per 1,000 square foot of floor area. So what we've calculated with the square footage of the structure, that it would take us to 195 parking spaces. So that will be something that the Plan Commission, you guys will need to consider as we're moving forward. My staff recommendation for tonight would be to move this on to public hearing for the July 11th Plan Commission meeting. And we will continue working with the petitioner to address some of the comments that we had.
Okay, great, thanks. Anything to add, Mr. Anderson?
No, sir.
Mr. Adi, you want to add something?
No, sir.
No, sir. It is what it is, right?
It's just it's a small 2,000 square foot addition on the southeast side of that building. It'll be structural steel, masonry, concrete, floors. Brian did a parking study and it looks like we're averaging 71 spaces available at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock. So it looks like we have sufficient parking, and we have entered into an agreement with Fountain View before in the past, if we have overflow, to capture 20 spaces from them. So
And the
I think we have
exterior,
that, pardon me?
I was going to ask if the, go ahead, finish.
So if we do have struggles with parking lots, we can always re-enter into that agreement with them. Because their parking lot's basically empty.
Now, and the exterior materials are going to match the current structure.
Yes, it'll be that like light peak brick and basically a flat roof BPDM, and the glazing will be that tinted blue.
Yes, sir. Is it going to, will require any additional rooftop units?
It'll be inside with the mechanical room.
Because if it ends up outside, obviously just from the screening perspective. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to set this for public hearing.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
And a second, any discussion? Be there or not, Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Zalinski,
Yes.
Mr. Speck,
Yes.
Dr. Kulturitis.
Yes.
Mr. Rappin.
Yes.
Ms. Mellon,
Yes,
Mr. Baker.
Yes. See you next month.
Thank you very much.
Next up, public hearing, PC 23-010, Jay Leeser of Maple Leaf Crossing LLC requesting approval of amendment to the Maple Leaf Crossing Planning and Development to add parking spaces and modify lots 2 through 7 and to outlots A and B. Ms. Rachel,
Yes. If we can scroll to page 3 of my staff report, there is a chart that gives a summary of the modifications that are being requested by the petitioner. Of course, we have 7 lots that are part of the site, and we have outlots A and B. Lot number 1, we have no changes proposed. Lot 2, they're requesting a slight reduction in the square footage of the lot and modifications to the site plan. On lot 3, there would be an increase in the size of lot 3, modifications to the site plan, and an increase in the size of the restaurant to 4,765 square feet. Lot 4, there's a decrease in size, a decrease in the size of the office building on lot 5, and a reduction of the square footage of the lot. Same thing with lot 6, there's a modification in the shape of the lot and a decrease in the size of the office building, a modification to the shape of lot 7. And all of those modifications to the lot sizes mean an increase in the size of outlots A and B, both of the parking areas. In addition to the modifications already talked about, there are changes to the overall site plan, including the addition of parking spaces and then the removal of the bike path that cuts through basically the center of the site. There's also an addition of a trash enclosure on outlot B and modifications to the landscaping plan. Overall, there is an increase in the number of parking spaces being requested. It would go from 351 to 385.
Picture.
If we can pull up, let's keep going. So there's 2 pieces of this that we'll need to consider.
Don't know where to go, so
Oh.
what page is it on, Rachel?
Let's go to page,
I have 6.
let's go to page 13, because this will give you guys an overall view of what the proposed changes are. So the areas that are highlighted in red on this drawing are the changes that are being proposed. So you can see a lot of the proposed changes are in the northwest quadrant of the site, or the northwest corner of the site.
That's up against the NIPSCO easement, correct?
It is up against, well, the NIPSCO easement, I think is, it is around there. And then there is the railroad tracks.
Yes.
There may be 2 NIPSCO easements.
This is the Pennsy, oops. This is the Pennsy Greenway.
So there's 2 parts to this that we'll need to consider. There's the modifications to the overall site development plan that we'll have to take a look at and then approve what changes you guys think are appropriate to be made. And then we'll have to look at the actual standards, that more the text part of the ordinance, because there's a couple of discrepancies right now that I would hope that we can get cleared up as a plan commission. If we look at, we're going to go through my analysis on the site plan modification. So that's where we will start. So you can stay on this page. First, we're going to talk about parking. So originally there were 358 parking spaces with the Maple Leaf Crossing PUD, and those were intended to be shared among all users. This is getting pulled from previous staff reports that had been done. So at the time of approval of the PUD, a parking study was submitted, which calculated that 350 total shared spaces were required for the development. Now, there was an amendment that was done to this plan, and that was when the cigar bar and the restaurant were getting proposed, and that was approved. At that time, a revised study was provided for the cigar bar and restaurant. It indicated that 52 spaces, a total of 12 additional, would be required for the cigar bar and restaurant. This study reduced the number of spaces required for the hotel from 86 to 75, and then the number of spaces required for the proposed restaurant from 56 to 32. So the total number of parking spaces required, or that were a part of the study, it was being recommended as 364. However, at the time, what was approved at the end of the day, staff had determined that 358 spaces were sufficient. The site plan that was approved as part of that amendment shows 352 spaces, if you're keeping up with all the parking counting that I've done. So this was 6 spaces less than what was originally approved. Today, what's being requested is that this parking will increase by 9.4% from 352 parking spaces to 385 parking spaces. So please consider that we haven't gotten any new data on a parking study. So please keep that in mind. The landscaping plan, Jill, I think if we can slide down a little bit more, the landscaping plan is included. Let's keep going. These are all the drainage calculations. It's likely going to be closer to the end of the document. There is some landscaping that's being proposed to change as part of this plan. It's mostly focused on that northwest corner of the site. This is the lighting plan. This is the proposed landscaping plan. So originally there was quite a bit more landscaping in that northwest corner. But with the removal of the bike trail, the landscaping seemed to have gone away with that. We asked the petitioner to add some landscaping back in, but that was not changed or revised before this meeting tonight. Sorry to make you flip back, Jill, but if you could go to page 6 of the staff report. You could zoom into that. You can see what the currently approved landscape plan looks like. And you can see in red, it's been highlighted to the areas that have been removed with this petition that has been submitted. If you scroll down to page 7 of this document, you can almost see a side-by-side comparison of the amount of landscaping that's being removed with the proposed parking changes. For my staff recommendation on the PUD development plan, the site plan, I'm aware that the petitioner's goal is to make better use of the site by removing the bicycle path and repurposing that area for additional parking spaces. In my opinion, there is still bicycle connectivity to the site with the proposed bike path that is proposed for Maple Leaf Drive or Maple Leaf Crossing, and the proposed bike path that also goes along Calumet Avenue. So with that being removed, it does make sense from my perspective that we would be modifying the site then to accommodate the removal of that bike path. However, I am concerned with the increase in hardscape and the decrease in the landscape areas of the petitioner's proposed plan. Should I be going through a staff recommendation right now, or do you guys want to hear from the petitioner first?
The petitioner, because I want to hear about more spaces, but not just yet. So thank you. Any questions for Miss Rachel as it relates to her presentation of what the recommendations are from staff? Either or none. Is there, in so much as this is a public hearing, is there somebody to speak on behalf of the petitioner on this particular subject? If there is, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
And you can maybe just stay on that page that you were on. David Beach, 1630 Cherry Blossom Drive. When we were here last month, we had proposed, well, let me back up. We recall when we first started on this project, Jay bought the parcel of land, and there was approximately an acre at the back here that was still owned by the town of Munster. And the town treated that in exchange for Jay designing and building and dedicating the land for the road. And so Maple Leaf Boulevard, along with the bike path, come along the north boundary of the property, and near the back or the western edge, but not all the way back, they turn and connect with the right of way, which will go through to Fisher Street. And when that trade was done, there was still a little piece in the very far northwest corner that would be west of the right of way where the bike path and the road connecting to Fisher would go. So what we had proposed was that little northwest corner could have accommodated some additional parking. And you recall when we were here last month, it was pointed out that the land swap of the land for Maple Leaf Boulevard for this back acre, the Mets and Bounds took that right of way all the way through to the west corner of the property. And that Lansing Country Club had, I guess, presented something where they might connect through this wetlands, which I think is currently owned by Pepsi. So what we did is we just removed everything from that northwest corner. The town owns it, we don't own it. I don't know if there are some other uses that someone else might want to make of it, but we took everything out of there. It's not ours to develop at this point, and we're fine with that.
The town still owns it.
This back corner where it says no plantings right away, that my understanding is that little corner is now owned by the town and not by.
So that wasn't part of the swap for the land for Maple Leaf Drive.
It was.
How does the town still own it?
This piece of land that runs the entire length of the property was traded from Maple Leaf Crossing back to the town. And we had thought it ended where the road ended. We were just trading for the road, but the legal description runs the entire length of the property. So it's not ours to develop. So we simply removed it. You know, as we said last month, we need to get our curbs and gutters going. We took it out. And obviously that decreases the landscaping, but just for edification, right to the north, you have the Pepsi manufacturing, which is kind of a corrugated steel building. And to the west, you have the two large NIPSCO transmission lines that connect with a substation just northwest of this. So that's where that little corner is located, the very far back of the property.
Did you give that land back to us?
We did.
When did you do that?
When we traded the Maple Leaf Boulevard for this back acre several years ago.
Okay, what else? So that is an issue, or is that just?
Well,
background, or what do we do?
When we submitted this, then the request was made that why don't we landscape that? And put our original plan had some landscaping in there. When we put the road in, we thought we still had this piece of property, that we were dedicating the road and that we could use this. And we had some trees in that. And when we came in to say we wanted to use it for parking, it was pointed out that we don't own it and that Lansing Country Club might want to use that. So we removed everything from there. There's no parking there, there's no trees. And then the suggestion was made that we should put the landscaping that had been shown on there in a previous rendition back in there.
Right here. Was where the landscaping was suggested here, and then some islands to match our current standards where we have an island every 10 spaces. That's what we asked for.
My question has to do with the road. Is the town keeping that parcel for the continuation of Maple Leaf to connect to the Lansing Country Club?
Correct.
It is. Okay, so it's gonna be roadway.
Yes.
All right,
It will be public infrastructure.
all right. So, and it's not part of what we're talking about here. This is just background.
That's background.
10-4.
The trash enclosure is still going in that corner, correct?
That's, yes, we have it right.
No, no. Well, I was-
It's right here.
Oh, you moved it, okay.
I have,
Yeah, originally it was up in that other corner.
Councilwoman.
well, so it says, okay, so I get this, what is ours and what is not straight. One of the motion with conditions that the staff is recommending says a commitment to plant future parkway trees per master zoning ordinance after construction of Maple Leaf in the right of way labeled no plantings in right of way. So is that no? Can you circle that with your finger right there? No
Sure.
plantings,
Touch.
well, don't, or just.
It says no plantings in right of way right there.
So is that ours or not?
It is, it's public right of way,
It's public right of way. So we want them to put trees in there.
just like
As
just
if-
like they're doing here.
Yes, okay, I just
Parkway
wanted,
trees, just like everybody puts in.
right, I know, I said, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. But that's not part of what was originally, you didn't have, originally that was what? That was part of the, it wasn't,
It's treated back.
now,
to the
now,
top.
now we're saying that because they're going to extend the parking, then therefore they're using that, so it has to be treated like a right-of-way parkway, like a house.
Or any business.
Or a business or anything. Is that what? I'm just- there's just so many-
Talking about 4 trees.
Yeah, no, I know, it's fine, I just want.
If I get Jay, Lisa, developer.
Do the, in the microphone, please, sir. So this is all, part of the Big Brother thing.
Jay Lisa, developer for Beverly Crossing. The reason we expanded the parking was because the road stopped and it was turning. And then Jill sent me a rendering of what Gary Warfel might do, which would bring a road right through
Mhm.
and curve in, but he's got to clip, he has to get 10 feet from Pepsi. So it's a if come, so if I don't want to improve it with asphalt or sewer or with trees, it's going to be converted to a road. So we're kind of a catch-22 on what I should do. So we just said, we'll stop and boom, and this is the town because you want to take a road all the way north.
So go back to that other one that you were at, that showed the trees and where the road was, I'm assuming estimated to be laid out. Because I mean, while you're looking for that, the one. Yeah, like that.
So I'd rather spend money on parking and tear me up than trees. Because that's the right of way, they're gonna take all this
Yeah.
for Gary
We
Warfel's.
didn't ask, put those trees back. We're asking that when the road gets developed, that they plant parkway trees.
Oh, way down the road, you're not talking about, okay,
It's a contingency.
The road being developed, the 100-foot right of way is here. So there would be no trees. There's a 100-foot right of way the town has on the Pepsi chain link fence.
So wouldn't it be 4 trees there, Jay? Just like they would match the same line as you go straight down? Like
No, but I'm not putting a bike path to nowhere. It goes into the wetlands. It goes into
No, it
utility.
would just be 4
So-
trees.
Yeah, it was we found it when we did the improvements. It was in 3D when we saw that, wait a minute, this is cattails. I only mitigated up to here, all the way through, right, to do this. When they said, don't do parking, and you sent me Gary's plan, which is totally proposed, he has to clip 10 feet of Pepsi to make his truck turns. So until you do that, I'll just leave it alone. Right? I mean, the right of way was to here. If you don't want to give me the right of way to improve it, how I want to do it, then I'll just leave it alone.
Right.
I'm trying to make more parking for
I
overflow.
think you're saying when the road gets finished off.
The road gets finished off, it's coming all the way through here, Roland. It's 100 feet right away.
So it goes all the way up to your curb line right there?
Yeah, it's all this. Gary's drawing, you have it?
I don't have it.
It comes and it takes 100-foot right away. And he actually has to clip 10 feet of Pepsi, which he's not
Yeah,
gonna do.
that's probably not gonna be able to handle any semi-traffic on that.
If he gets a
Estimated
10
right
foot,
there.
if he gets a 10-foot cut from Pepsi.
It's been designed to handle truck.
So stay on task with regards to what we're talking about here and the changes on the parcel to which Mr. Leeser owns. He does not own that, and you're not requesting as a part of what he's trying to accomplish, anything to happen to the land currently owned by the town.
I think it's part of the condition that
it's
he
in,
just
it's in the
read.
motion, that's why. It's in
When
there.
and if that road were to be constructed, there will be space for parkway trees, and when and if that road is constructed, we ask that the trees be planted at that. And I agree to put trees in when and if,
Yeah,
but it's conditioned now.
Yeah.
Part of the language.
I think that's what threw me, because it seems like,
I'll be happy.
Usually-
Right now, you put 4 trees.
I'll put 4 there, and I'll put 4 in.
we could be talking, 10 years, I don't know.
Might never happen.
So I mean, I have a question, and I don't know if this is for the petitioner or for staff, as it relates to, they're looking for additional parking spaces, and what was submitted. The feedback from staff, it looks like, yes, we hear you, but with what you're doing, put more landscaping in and take some of those spaces out. Is that how I'm interpreting this?
Yes, from my perspective, there's not been any new information presented saying that additional parking spaces are required with the approved uses of the site. We had 2 parking studies that had been done previously that gave numbers on parking spaces on what was needed for those uses. So I am struggling with the addition of parking spaces without having additional data to support it.
Now, help me, I mean, this might be you, Mr. Anderson, with regards to a PUD, but it is my understanding of PUD, even though we try to align with the zoning requirements and development requirements, a PUD stands by itself.
It's true.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why it's before you a subdivision, because this is a PUD, you have for the right to amend this as you see fit. So as a way to provide resources, staff has to have some kind of framework. We look at
Absolutely.
we look at the data. We say, this is what the data that was previously provided states. These are the guidelines that other people in town comply with. We put the 2 together, and that's a recommendation. But it's only a recommendation based on a framework that we have to provide you information.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Beach, continue, or is there more?
Sure. So our thought on this, we proposed to increase the parking to 385 spots. And we're proposing to do that by adding spaces at the very back of the property up against the NIPSCO easement and transmission lines. And our thought was, you recall back in the original parking study, according to the Munster parking code, we would have needed 509 spots for each of these buildings individually. And because we positioned them with, a hotel next to an office building, we were able to reduce that significantly. That the hotel will need it at night, the office building will need it during the day, the restaurant will be more night, and then the 2 south buildings will be day. So we were able to reduce that. But as we look at what's up Munster and we see one of the constant complaints, there's not enough parking. And our parking experts said we were able to reduce significantly, but we would feel more comfortable having a few extra spots where we could put employee and staff parking. So we'll have employees and staff parking in the back that will free up spaces around all of the restaurant, professional, and then the south buildings for people that are coming and going. We think that's the highest and best use of that land at the back of the property.
Just a thought,
Sure.
This is at the very back of the property, and I can see where parking won't be seen and landscaping won't be seen. But along the edge in front of the parking, it runs perpendicular, it runs towards the road. Do you think we can add more trees down in front of the lot? Is that, and I can show you where. And maybe Jill can. Is there enough room? I don't know where the property line is, or your property line's here. Yeah, so that's your property line right there, huh?
Yeah.
So you don't own anything down this
No.
way, so you're right on the lot line.
Yep.
So who owns this property down here? Is that an easement?
That's Pepsi. And then there's the big NIPSCO easement that comes through here. So it's wetlands with 2
So
transmission.
Pepsi owns property all the way down here towards 45th Street?
Triangle.
This triangle that goes all the way back up to the NIPSCO substation is Pepsi property.
I would have been ashamed we could have added some trees down the.
Well, and that's all wetland. To do anything in there, it has to be mitigated.
It's all wetland all the way up their property line.
So if it's a wetland, you have to mitigate it before you put a tree in it? No, this is welcome to public sector.
You can put a deciduous tree there.
Oh.
Only through October and April.
But that's not their land. I mean, that would be just another side from the standpoint if the goal is to get more trees. Maybe outside of that is a deal with Pepsi, because I don't think they're gonna be building anything over there, do you?
I'll give you his phone number, you should try it.
We've tried to have discussions and have not gotten anywhere to get that incorporated.
Where Pepsi ever comes in as strong.
No Coke,
Did you have a question, Andy? Okay. So can I see the difference between, I'm scrolling through here, between the landscaping that you're proposing and the landscaping that the town is proposing? For the most,
Well, this
like
was
the
the, so
difference.
this was the approved, this is the landscape plan that's approved for the PUD.
What page is that, Sean?
6.
Six.
And so I bubbled everything that's bubbled is gone in the new plan.
Okay, so there was parking, but I thought that there was no parking here before. But there was
it's part of the bike path.
it was the bike path.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
that's right.
bike path right here, which
When we
by-
cleared the wetlands in January, we realized it went to the wire, the NIPSCO lines.
Gotcha.
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say, so if you were to do, like, even though it's in the back, I mean. The parking, instead of having just parking and no landscaping. How many trees, like, when I look at this motion, it says take out 3 spaces so that you can have, like, I do think those, the island, I'm trying to find it as I'm talking, but the island. Yeah, I mean, it just adds some, because even if it's in the back, if you're like at the hotel and you're coming out, you're going to the cigar bar, I don't know, just so that it's not all concrete.
Yeah.
So I do agree. I hear a lot of issues with, we keep trying to reduce parking, but everything I hear from businesses and people going to them, they want parking.
This is,
So-
let me see if I should circulate it. I thought I sent it to Jill and I didn't.
So,
And he talks about what we removed and what we did. And Don Rubel was done work for Don and myself and other projects, and it did the design. It talks about we don't lose much by doing that.
but could we put something, like, so that whole area there now is just gonna be flat. I'm just trying to, so there's no landscaping.
well, and
All
if,
back there?
maybe if we can enlarge this just a little bit, but one of our concerns, if we put in a built-up curb right here, the cars are gonna be coming this way and then having to do like a 120-degree turn to come back. This was the smaller one. When we push this back, now there's, if you can go back to the other, with the larger area there, you have to turn back more than 90 degrees, and then the same this way. It's more than a 90-degree turn.
So this is, I'm not a parking lot designer, but would it be crazy to make that, because I see what you're saying, and I've seen that issue other places and people trying to turn and then it's too tight. But if those 3 spaces were just gone and you just had like a circular, you know what I mean? If it was round, it'd be easier to get around. And just so you had some greenery, and I don't know if that's silly, and I'm, got some construction experts up here. I just don't know how important those extra 3 trees. I'm just looking for I don't know, tell me if that sounds silly. But
Jill, could you go down to page 9 of the staff report? Because I think some of the things that we're trying to talk about here are indicated on page 9, possibly. So with that triangle piece, one of the staff recommendations is to, change that piece that you were talking about to at that landscape island, similar to what the original plan was proposing. And then these bubble out the different areas too that staff is recommending that get converted back to landscaping or to
Oh, I see.
landscaping. BZA.
Is this- It's a inlet. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the areas that staff is looking for things to happen.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's like, this is just, instead of having any parking there at all, it's just like a surface to get up.
Correct, so they
Yeah.
upgraded it, made it bigger, and
Mhm.
tried to take that triangle and do that.
Yeah.
That's the new ad, or my other ad is up here, and that's where the other.
I
And
got you.
then here's the property line. and we're trying to push it
This is what-
down.
They're proposing. They're proposing to keep that.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
staff wants the landscape. Now, what were you gonna do? What was the original proposal around those
parking spaces. Let's pick the triangle. So, I mean, was that grass, which is gonna die because you're gonna put a bunch of salt and snow on it every year? Is it gonna be mulch? Is it rock? And it's staff saying they want trees and, hibiscus. I mean,
Really, I would just say that in this whole thing, we're trying to maximize the parking with what we have left.
I get it.
From what's going on in town. And we feel that with what Turinga designed and we went through back and forth, we're maximizing our parking. What they're asking for is put islands in and trees in that would reduce parking. The Hyatt, they come in at 8 o'clock, they leave at 6 or 7 in the morning. You want overnight parking, you want staff parking. We're trying to add 2 spots, 5 spots, 10 spots. And again, we're not on Calumet Avenue, we're on the far west end of the property, and it's looking at wetlands that have cattails that are there year round. So.
And
that's-
Maple Leaf Boulevard and a
Pardon?
bike. And also the new Maple Leaf Boulevard will be there, and this is the only bike trail connecting. We'll go right by that area.
Yeah, so we're trying to maximize the parking with what we have.
So in that northwest corner right there, that's kind of bubbled up, what was the original plan? No, for the inside the boat there. What were you originally gonna put there? Why don't you just put some damn trees in there and everybody will be happy?
This is staying, right?
We couldn't, it was a dead corner, so we can. put-
But this is staying right here, right?
Yeah,
My recommendation,
I have
honestly,
trees in there,
my
I have
recommendation,
no problem with it. It
And-
was just, it was
Go ahead,
the
Roland.
rectangle or the trapezoid up there that we're not touching.
my recommendation is put something in here. Can you have any little greenery right here, small little stuff like in this area around?
The snow, I mean,
That's all striped?
This was
Okay,
just-
so this is striped, so you're not curving this, around like this,
No,
you're just putting a curb around this now.
this was
Yeah.
just striped on the paper.
The only problem with having the 2 islands here. If you're dealing with snow, this is a nightmare to try to plow that kind of stuff. That's the one thing. I
And
mean.
some drainage.
Yeah, I mean,
down.
this is tough back here, and you're gonna have a hard time plowing around all this stuff back here anyways. This needs to be done. These trees need to be done in the future, whenever,
Maximize our parking with the box we have.
and I appreciate what staff's trying to accomplish with trying to green up the place, especially in that back end, but on the other side of that property line, if I'm not mistaken, it's gonna be a smorgasbord of greenery.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe a compromise is to do something in that northwest corner to the councilman's point. That's where the bike trail, and that's kind of where some of the traffic's gonna go into. Lansing Country Club will end up making their way down there just to make it look nice. My suggestion would be some kind of an evergreen type of a thing that stays like that, but I can't speak to how everybody else feels about that, just because it stays green year round. Big fan.
And I'm all.
I have a couple comments to make. I haven't been able to
That's
get.
great.
staff
I'll
report.
pick it up.
Thank you.
For this
A
group
couple-
to spend millions of dollars in our community.
I think a couple things to consider as you're looking at this too. It's not just about the landscaping, it's about site circulation in general. So the triangular piece that we're debating on the 3 parking spaces and whether or not we put greenery in there or not. If we look back at our zoning ordinance right now, one of the guidelines in our zoning ordinance is that rows of parking fronting on drive aisles, including alleys, shall be provided with a minimum 5 feet of landscaped buffer. And that's not just about the landscaping, it's about site circulation in general. So keeping people in an area that, they know which way to be driving, I think is important to consider with this too. And if we do have snow events, I know it provides a challenge sometimes on snow plowing, but it also helps with site circulation in general because people will know where they're supposed to be parking and supposed to be driving if we have things like curbs and landscape islands.
Thank you. So, originally, were you planning for those 3 spots to be encased in curbing, or was that just paint?
Stripes.
It's striped.
Huh, all right, so when it's ice and, cold and slush for the 7 months out of the year, nobody's gonna be able to see any of that.
We'll just plow it here right away.
So part of the challenge is, where do they park, and this is still a region and people go wherever they want. So unless you designate where they're gonna go, that could be a challenge. Now, I understand that, but I don't know necessarily if it's curbing or it's definitely not a 5-foot landscaping thing, because that'll be an issue in and of itself.
And it may be interesting to talk about too, when there is snow removal that's being done, where is the snow removal going? Because the parking lot edge is on the property line. And it doesn't seem that we would be able, or the petitioner would be able to be plowing snow and dumping it onto the Pepsi site. Where is that snow removal going to take place? Landscape
Well,
Island provide an area.
Well, you're new. When I ask that question, everybody thinks it's funny. So it's part of the ongoing premise of how things are going to be able to handle. And it's usually left up to the guy at 3 o'clock in the morning that's out
Agreed.
there plowing snow. So in this kind of a setup, if it ends up, it might be losing parking spaces because the pile continues to grow. If that doesn't get, taken into consideration firsthand, I mean, that's just how it rolls. But.
And I think the last thing to look at too is that the landscaping in the northwest corner, the way it's being presented now, it does not appear to be cohesive with the rest of the site plan. The rest of the site plan is landscaped and it's very lovely. And this area just seems very minimal compared to the rest of the site. It just seems very disconnected. So I think if we can put a little more emphasis like we've done with the rest of the site, it would just help with that. Look like
If that was designated, that northwest corner as a place where you put the big pile of snow, what kind of plant materials do you think would be able to survive after that scenario? Because that's right now where I'm putting all the snow. No, the dumpster is a little further south.
Dumpster is right down to there, right there.
Well, there's 2 parking spaces between the dumpster and the,
The dumpster used to be there.
right. See those 2 slots like that? Those are 2 parking, so you're gonna end up losing those when the pile goes
But,
up. That's where the pile-
I mean, for
Yeah.
someone, if I can make a comment, for someone that's been on the site daily, like Rachel, have you been on the site
Yes, I have.
on the back of it?
Yeah.
So it's all cattails and depressed from 2 rail lines. It's raised and there's 2 valleys. So it's low,
Ditches.
yeah, pitches. So
Not Phragmites, is it, Mr. Anderson? Better not be.
So it's a, we're just trying, like I said earlier, we're trying to maximize the parking. Put trees on the back if they wanted in that back triangle, but really, we're just trying to get extra staff parking for the high end, staff parking for the common
Okay.
staff. And then again, it's the western end of the property.
I get it.
Okay, we've done a nice job to date with what we're doing with the architecture and the buildings. We have 2 more buildings to show to you next month along the south boundary, and we're moving forward. So we're talking probably about 8 parking spots for our messing over.
Okay.
Let's see, curb and gutter and landscaping.
Jay, the only problem I have in not having that 3-spot triangle curve is every time something is just striped, people park however they want. And there's no delineation.
So I
My
was,
wife will park on an angle and take up 3 spots and we block.
so I was gonna curb it, and Don and Ed and I spoke, and then when you back up from against the building, you'll whack that, maybe, if you don't have that extra foot. So we can curve it and triangle it. I'm just trying to make it so when they do plow, it's just smooth, right through.
Even at the Sherville, the new YMCA where the Omni used to be, they had to put up all cones, because guess what?
Yep.
Go over that line, whatever they want.
I mean, I don't know what the happy medium is.
Right.
If we triangle it with curve and put a tree in it, it screws up plowing and it will get
Well, you're not
screwed.
putting a tree or anything in it.
No, no, but if we
But
do
you
nothing with
delineate
it,
with the
I could
curve.
leave, if I leave it out, it's a total void, and I'll probably park there anyway. So I don't know the solution, other than we engineered it accordingly, and that was the best.
So like I said, I don't have a problem with taking out the 2 intermediate islands. Of those 2, I think the corner at the northwest corner should be landscaped nicely, and I think the curve works out. Just with traffic control and parking for that 3-spot triangle.
All right, let me work through the process of this public hearing part, and we can bring it back to the board once I check this off the box of things I have to accomplish. So that all being said, I can bring it back to the board. At first, I want to be able to do is open it up for public hearing in case anybody would like to speak on this particular matter. I can't help with the tech, but if somebody would like to speak on this, let's check this part of the program off. Going once, going twice, still you see anybody online? All right, if there none, I'm gonna close the public hearing, bring it back to the board, Mr. Rappin.
I've heard my comments.
Councilman?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, since we're talking about the triangle with the 3 spots, I'm curious, what was the issue with the original design for that? It looked like there was some sort of structure in there to help with the traffic flow. And I'm wondering if it can be reverted back to the original design. Or what the issue would be with that.
Is that like just an island?
Yeah.
There is a drainage structure
Yeah.
in the science facility.
But the drainage is still there, correct, Joe? The structure.
There's a structure there, and then there are curb cuts to allow the water to flow into.
So
this
catch
area
basin.
And be in the catch. Go into the catch basin.
So that's still in that island.
But the structure is still there.
As
In the parking
proposed.
spot. That's what we.
Right,
That structure, it remains.
right. So it looks like, Councilman, they took that kind of space right there and tried to add some spaces, to park there.
Yeah, and it's sounding like those spaces are problematic now, so I'm wondering why we can't revert to the original design.
So the curbing, Jill, as it relates to that storm catch basin, I mean, are they curbed like, they're not, humps, they're bumps, whatever, or is it an actual curbing?
I think it would be a normal 6-inch curb and gutter section.
B612.
To bring the water to the catch basin?
Well, there's cuts, so
The
the
truss
pavement
curb.
is sloped to that island. And the water would go in through the curb cuts to get into the,
So are the curb cuts specific to making sure the drainage does what it's supposed to be doing? It is. And then would that still be there though with the proposed striping?
There is no curb. Right.
Well, that's my question.
the basin is still here somewhere. I don't
So-
know exactly where it is, but it's right around here. And I have not seen it. It's in this set of proposed drawings. It is still in that location.
Because I'm trying to think of other location where in the middle of a parking lot, you have curbing, they're trying to force water to a particular catch basin.
That's every parking lot. Try to force the parking.
Well, I know it's all by slope usually, it's not by,
It's a low spot. It's a low spot. It just happens to be curved to provide some landscaping. It's kind of like a.
Is there curbing that could be possible with trying to get some additional spaces that can still suffice to meet the requirement of helping with the stormwater?
You ask the question again?
Sure. So you said that there's particular curbing now going in this parking lot to be able to force water to this particular catch basin. My question is if there's curbing already there for that specific scenario, water into the catch basin, is there a way to engineer that particular curbing to be able to also provide for parking spaces?
He's asked about some depressed curves where the water would come through. You would bring the curb and
Well,
bring
I
it down the pavement grade to let the water flow through.
Yes, I mean, if you wanted to curve this configuration,
Well, no, I know that, but I mean, right now, until I just heard about the storm catch basin, I was just saying you pick, one option is to curb the whole thing, but if it's a, catch basin in there with curbing that's trying to guide water to a specific location, I don't know how that, and my question is, with between those two situations, is there a happy median that both, there's a way to have some Purdue engineer to say, here's what we can do, or Mr. Tringa to help with that?
You didn't want to be.
we can always engineer it to work, which is. But,
It seems like a lot of work for 3 parking spots
Right.
when the original design seemed to provide a bit of landscaping and critical drainage and traffic guidance. I'm probably using the wrong term there.
I don't think the curb helps drainage.
You had a curb around this island anyway.
Right, but I don't think it helps drainage. I think if you don't,
We go tunnels.
if you want to go against me, I'll just leave it open, those 3 spots. Because you come in and out of Maple Leaf Boulevard right there. Right, like as I stated, we're trying to maximize parking. if it's an issue, I'd rather not put a curb, just leave the storm catch basin there and let it go how it goes. Is the curb?
I'm also wondering what's changed, because originally the parking requirement was 509, and the adjustments were down to reduce the amount of parking. And now it seems like there's a strong desire to maximize parking, to the tune of 3 or 8 additional slots. So what's changed about the thinking or the actual design or uses that's making this so critical at this time?
I think the demand of where we are in the middle of town. Trying to meet the demand.
And I would also. say-
Councilman, the answer to your question was density.
And I would also say your proximity to this development isn't easy to park at other locations.
Correct, we don't have a parking garage across the street.
Or you don't have public roads.
So we're just trying to, like, as I say, to maximize what we can. And again, if we build it and there's an issue, I would go back in and re-engineer it if we found something in the field, like we do over the years. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Councilman.
I agree, that we need to landscape that one corner. And I think that little island area that we're all talking about should just be left wide open with the drain there and not landscape that at all. The landscape that corner, that upper corner, get rid of those 2 little islands, get rid of that triangle in the middle and just leave that wide open, and that'll allow all the plowing. And I'm sure people will know how to park because there's no issue in regards to parking in that triangle there. So that makes the most sense to me right now. But I definitely, that corner needs to be landscaped somehow. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we got some action here. Let's do something.
I mean, as a developer, I would.
Hold on a second, Mr. Laser. So what we heard is about the corner up here in the corner as it relates to some landscaping. We got the triangle piece, whether or not we want to consider the recommendations from staff to lose another 2 spaces for additional landscaping along the property line. And looks like it's something with the crosswalk. Reading.
Yes. On this sheet that is currently up.
Crosswalk looks like it's at an angle just because of the design of the layout, but you're squaring it off just because.
A shorter distance for pedestrians to walk. I know it's not by much, but.
It's all about walking though. We like that.
Good. And we did talk earlier with Jay, and Jay had indicated that that was a accommodation that he'd be willing to make with it. We just want to make sure that we get it. in. I think it would, it may be where we would scoot that landscaping down to the west a little bit, so that that crosswalk is perpendicular then. So it might change. I don't think you won't lose any parking spaces. It just is going to move where that little landscaped island is where people are.
Thank you. All right, back to the commission. Let's roll, folks. What do you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to recommend approval of PC docket number 23-010 to consider amendment to the Maple Leaf Crossing Planned Unit Development to add parking spaces and modify lots 2 through 7 and outlots A and B with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
So there's a motion to mirror the staff report, which Rachel, you read, because I don't want to read it. You don't.
So this would include a commitment to plant the future parkway trees in the area that is currently labeled no plantings in the right of way. We would do modifications to the parking areas on the development plan that reflect no more than 377 parking spaces in outlots A and B, which would include the following. So the removal of the 3 parking spaces in that triangle area. We would remove a parking space southeast of the trash enclosure. And this was one that it didn't sound like you guys wanted to do, but we can talk about that. the removal of 3 parking spaces west of the NIPSCO easement in the northwest corner of the site to be replaced with a landscape island as originally approved. And the removal of 1 parking space west of the NIPSCO easement in the northwest corner of the site to be replaced with a landscape island. We would want a modification to the development plan to show the crosswalk and outlot A between lot 2 and lot 7 to be redesigned to be perpendicular to the drive lane. There would be a modification to the development plan that would show the square footage of lot 7. This is not something we discussed earlier, but lot 7 currently is being shown as the total square footage. It's not the total square footage, it's the square footage of the first floor. However, all of the other structures on the site are being identified as the total square footage. So we would want to make sure that that structure is consistent with the way that the other structures are being labeled.
But that's an administrative thing. Why are you listing it as a part of a condition of a motion?
Because we asked for that clarification and it didn't get made on the drawing set.
If I can interject, it was approved, I think, in November, and we're not changing what was approved when Karma came in front of you in November. Same box. I think what's shown there is the condition space, not the patios. So I don't know why part of this, but nothing that was approved in November has changed from when Karma came in front of you. So we did,
Okay, thank you.
well, all I did was make lot 7 a little bigger, so it wouldn't encroach on lots 5 and 6. The ability to.
Hold on a second, Mr. Lees, we gotta get through this admin stuff.
I get it, but there was an interjection, so I figured I had the opportunity.
All right. So a lot of stuff listed here. Is there more, Rachel, that Councilman Tulowitzki is making a part of his motion?
Yes, the last piece would be a modification to the PUD developmental standards with the following language. Section 1A shall be amended to read development of lot 7 as a cigar bar and restaurant in accordance with the approved development plan. Currently in the language, it specifies the square footage there. And like I said, right now, there's a discrepancy between the two. So I would like to see that get cleaned up. And then section 6 shall be amended to read off-street parking shall include no more than 377 parking spaces. Right now it reads.
Is there there's a motion there, you guys, thank you, Rachel, for reading all of that.
You're welcome.
Is there a second? Going once. Going twice. Bring it back to the board for non-second on that particular motion. Back to where we started from. We're not reading it again, Rachel, thank you.
Billy, can I speak?
No, thank you, not just yet. Back to the board.
Mr.
Question?
Chairman, I would make the same motion with modification of removing 2 dots under the second condition. The removal of 1 parking space southeast of the trash enclosure to be removed, to replace with landscape island in the northwest corner of the site, and then also the 4th dot. So effectively, this motion would be the same as the previous one, but not requiring the jut outs, which remove 1 parking space. That should make snow plowing easier.
Is there 2 of them, John? Is there 2 jot outs?
Yeah, he did both of them.
Okay.
All right, so.
Yeah, both of those.
Again, as outlined by the councilman, is there a second?
I'm confused on the motion. Are we taking out on the
So
dots 3, 4, and 5, the removal of 1, the removal of 3 parking spots, and then another removal of 1 parking spot?
Correct. So it would be removal of 3 would remain, the first circle bullet point, and the 3rd circle bullet point would remain in the motion, removal of 3 parking spots. But the 2, 1 parking space that are removed. And if we're looking at the picture there, it's just, that's my idea anyways. If that needs to be modified, let me know. But provide the landscaping islands, I'm suggesting we don't require those 2 landscaping islands,
Mr. Speck,
kind of shaped like my pillows.
Mr. Speck, follow up? Clear as mud? Speck, hello?
Yes,
Is that clear as mud? for your
yes,
question? Okay,
correct. That is clear as mud to me.
thank you. So we have a motion. Is there a second? So
I just wanna make sure.
going once,
Hold on, I just wanna make sure I was following along. So is the 3 parking spaces staying or going? Is it going back to the original or is it staying the way it is with the 3 spots right there?
my,
In the motion, it would go back to the original.
Okay. And then the other one is the 2 jet out spots that I see, it's going just back to parking and no islands in those 2 locations.
Right.
What was that again?
And then there's 3 removals, removing those up and if I,
They're staying.
He's going to the first one. So you gotta go back to the.
I just wanna make sure, 'cause
Like
I'm
this thing.
confused.
Yeah.
So,
So it's basically the full proposal I showed.
This
in the
one's coming
drawing.
out, this one's coming out, right?
Coming out.
This is staying, being landscaped,
Yeah,
and then this is going back to that little island. Is that what,
That's what, that's when.
Is that the motion?
only about the parking spaces. He did not change anything about all the other things. So all the other issues that were listed by Rachel are also still included in that particular motion.
yes, but the only thing he adjusted is this is coming out. This is parking, this is parking, this is an island, right? That's the. Is that what I'm clear of?
I'm trying to figure out the corner, get the corner clear, are we?
The corner was staying like this, just being landscaped. These spots are staying here, just landscape.
full landscape.
Yeah,
This is out, this is out, this is parking, this is parking.
right.
I would
These stay.
propose remove that whole thing, so there's no confusion.
So this is just gonna be that little circle again.
But I would remove the circle and just. let
And
it
just,
rain.
and just let it drain, right? You don't need
I
it
can
there.
plow through it.
Right, exactly, which probably makes sense for you to do that. You probably need the roof, you know? Right, right,
Stay on whatever page it says and agree on this page,
yes.
and then go to the other.
Okay, so we understand about the
This is
parking.
it would be landscape, and he's saying just-
Right, and the other page that has the
Lamps, I don't-
IU visual for me on the modifications for lot 7 and the off-street parking. What, I don't understand those.
Is there, Dustin, can you put up one page on one screen, one thing and one on the other, or are they all together?
No, they're tied together.
Rachel, do you know what page the, oh, it was back at the beginning. Was it maybe 4?
I didn't hear the question clearly on what
I
we're
didn't
looking for.
answer the question. I didn't ask the question. This shows the,
Square footage discrepancy, is that it?
yeah, the lots and everything.
Okay, if we could scroll down to page 13.
17?
13.
13.
Sorry.
And then if you can pan over to lot 7. So lot 7 here is labeled as that the cigar lounge is 4,175 square feet, which is not the total not the total square footage of the structure. That is the first floor square footage only. The rest of the structures on the site are all labeled with total square footage.
Hmm.
So when I was reviewing the plan, we had asked the question.
That's not true, because lot 2 is more than 18,000 square feet, it's the footprint. Same with lot 1 is the footprint.
it's the first floor, right?
Yeah, it's a footprint. So lot 7, that box is the box that was approved in November. And the
I don't
blue,
disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I think that is the shape of the,
the blue line where the letter G is on lot 7 was the original building of lot 6. And I felt it was too close to their patio and shrunk each building by about 400 feet. So they would space out more and have more landscaping. So that's what lot 7 represents, but the footprint is the footprint.
why do we have the footprint indicated in red, and red on your, the chart below says new curb / parking layout, building and trash enclosure. So
Where you
when I'm
at?
reading this, there's an indication that that structure is changing in some way.
Wait, explain what you're talking about and reference which lot and where it is.
Okay, so where you have lot 7, the footprint of the building is outlined in red. And then
Uh-huh.
according to your key code,
That's new.
it says
Those new.
it's indicating a change. So the only change that I could find was the square footage that was being indicated, because on an earlier drawing, it said 6,400 square feet.
And I have to go back to what we did in November, but the patios are probably not in the red box.
So if the patio changed, then I would expect that the red line to be around the patio, not,
The patio is what was approved in November. And me moving the lot line was to kind of space it. So if there's a language barrier, we could fix.
okay.
But the box is the box.
If I recall.
So
I
that's,
guess when I was looking at lot 3, I believe the square footage of the restaurant is changing on lot 3 though. So I was, I guess, comparing my apples to apples on the plan that lot 3, the square footage that you had submitted was changing for that. So I assume then with the numbers changing on lot 7, that was also indicating a change.
everything in red on that page is changing.
If
Right,
the council members way back when we originally did this, there was a small pub on lot 7. When you approved Karma is a change from the original pub that was going to be in ordinance 1803. And this, what you have on here now, Karma, is what you approved in November. But it's updating the site plan to reflect what you had in November, which is different than what was back in 2000.
And all I did was make the lot where G is about 10 feet bigger to get it away from lot 6, so it wasn't on top of each other. The building never changed from our November.
So could we just change the cigar lounge writing and the line around it to be black so that it's not showing as a change? Because the
All I
red
did was-
line needs to change, right?
Right, Joe, you're correct. All I did was change the lot, not the building.
So I
6 and
pull
7,
that,
I changed the building. So there's,
I guess I'm still confused though, because when I look at lot 6 and lot 5, what was originally on lot 5 and 6 was indicated as a 7,774 square foot building, and those were indicated on the last plan that had been submitted and approved. So, and I know with this one, you are proposing that the square footage of those structures are both being reduced.
Okay. All right, thank you, Rachel. Mr. Tringa, you're standing up there like you can lend some color to this, please.
Yes, I can. What we are talking about here is.
Just do me a favor and state your name. You know, oh, I have to do all that. They yell at me when I go.
Don Touring, it's Touring Engineering, 907 Ridge Road, Mount Stream.
Thank you, sir.
What we are talking about here is we're talking about a planned unit development. And by the requirements of any town or any city, that planned unit development, where the buildings are to be placed on those lots is shown. And it is recorded as part of the planned unit development. On lot number 7, as was stated by Mr. Beach earlier, there was a small rectangle. That rectangle is not what is being proposed there. In November, Karma, the cigar bar, came in and they asked for a different size building and it was approved. On lot 6, that building has been shortened as what Jay said. On lot 5, the building has been shortened. On lot 3, the restaurant is slightly different. So with those changes, what was outlined in red, besides parking, the buildings changed, so therefore we labeled them as, since this is going to be re-recorded, which is part of the second portion of this public hearing tonight, we labeled those as being modifications. That's where the confusion comes in. So we really haven't done anything other than what is required by the ordinance. Hopefully that's clear.
So the square footage, the total square footage of lot 7, the structure on lot 7 is 6,400 square feet.
I didn't do it myself. I had my CAD operator do it, but I would assume he did it correctly. Yes.
Okay. It's just not being labeled consistently with the other structures on the site. That's my only issue with it.
Duly noted. We still have a motion out there that we're trying to work through. So, Councilman, with the new
Yes.
information that you were just provided, with the information that you stated as it related to the parking space picture, now with this picture, how would you like to handle that as a part of your motion? as originally discussed or as reflected in the discussion we just had here?
I mean, this labeling of lot 7 sounds a little bit convoluted and not entirely critical. I think I heard that this, let's take lot 6, for example, 7182 square foot is a footprint. 4175 in lot 7 square foot, that would also be a footprint. If they're all shown as footprints, I mean, I would have to leave it to, I don't know that this needs to be in this motion for this ordinance, but I do think it ought to be clarified and submitted properly.
This is
I don't know.
the PUD, so with the motion that you're doing to approve that, are you excluding the last two bullet points?
The last bullet point, the one we've been talking about, is change it to 6,400 square feet. I mean, that could be labeled as to coordinate with staff to make sure that it's accurate. I don't know that the plan commission really would know if that's an accurate number.
It is what was approved in November. So if this label, it is what the.
Well, if it was wrong in November,
No, it was
then
right
it
in-
should be fixed.
It was right in November. If it's incorrect now, it's what was approved in November.
Well,
Well, you can make.
if it was wrong in November and it was approved and it's incorrect now, that doesn't make sense. sir.
So what I'm hearing, let me interject. So what I'm hearing is that what's proposed on this particular plan is what they're submitting as it relates to what they want to approve as part of this amendment. Staff has brought up the issue with regards to the square footages as outlined in those last two bullet points about the 6,400 square feet and the modification of the P development standards. So do you want the part of the motion to include that or exclude that is my question.
I mean, I would be okay with removing the penultimate, the second to last bullet point about the 6,400 square feet, and then hope that staff and the developer could work to just make sure the labeling is appropriate. I don't think we've talked about the last sub bullet point yet. I'm not sure I understand entirely the no more than 377 parking spaces. Ms. Christensen, could you help us understand that?
Yes, when I read through your standards, I think it currently states that the number is kind of arbitrary, I guess, on what the parking should be. Because I think it states in the amended ordinance right now that it would be 350 around, I think it says approximately 358 parking spaces. So this was simply to clean up that language so that it said no more than 377, or in this case, since we would be keeping more parking spaces. My point was to clean up the language in the ordinance so that there wasn't a discrepancy between the site plan itself and then the language in the ordinance.
And I'm not sure if Ms. DiTomaso or Mr. Anderson can weigh in. Do we normally put in a not to exceed parking in a PUD ordinance like this? Do we see that as an important or critical part of this?
I can't recall an instance in a PUD ordinance that we have, but it usually washes out into an advocacy because there's a specific calculation and a number of spots that are designated. So maybe not phrased like this, but in essence and practicality, yes.
And if I could just add that if the words and the pictures aren't the same, then 10 years from now, we're going to be really.
Yeah.
It was difficult coming in as an outsider reviewing the standard language and then looking at the approved site plan. It's just, these were things that I caught that were not matching up, and I wasn't sure as staff then which one is the accurate one or the overriding one. I think you typically go with the more restrictive one, but I don't think that was what the route that we wanted to go with here.
The only thing I would say, if you go to the northwest corner, Dustin, if in 10 years, Maple Leaf Boulevard does not go northwest to Lansing Country Club, and the town says, you know what, why don't you add your 12 parking spots because it's dead property? Then why would I be restricted and not add 10 parking spots if I was gonna pay for it, so there was more staff parking for the hire?
Then you'd simply submit a new amendment like we're doing today, correct?
I get it, but why do you do not to exceed and put me to the exact limit that you're showing and not what it could be?
Well, the point that I just heard, and as a former mechanical engineer, I know it's bad when blueprints aren't accurate. They
But
don't,
see,
descriptions and
that's-
blueprints.
Say not to exceed 390. I mean, why do you put me to the limit that it is? Because there is an opportunity where Maple Leaf Boulevard may not ever go through on the 100-foot right of way to the northwest.
Alternatively, we can say that the parking will be reflected in the approved site plan, and then we can take the number out altogether in the standard language.
I'd be more comfortable with that.
Everybody would be. That'd have been great to be in there.
Agreed.
Place.
So let the motion reflect that latest change to be approved in the site plan.
Okay, no, my next question is, Mr. Anderson,
And I buy a vowel on what we're doing.
I'm looking for a second.
I want to know what the motion is first.
What is the motion is to leave.
Executive Secretary.
Motion was, as previous stated, except to leave the two westernmost spots on the western border that abuts the Pepsi property line as parking. And then to drop the language on new lot 7 and amend the language regarding parking number not to exceed, striking that. And let it reflect in the site plan as presented.
Councilman, is that what you said?
Yes.
There's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank
And a
you.
second. How about this? Part of it is more discussion.
I really don't think we need to put that little item back in there,
Which one?
the one that is in the original drawing. It should just be lumped down.
Where we are,
You're just,
moving the whole thing.
you're just putting a staircase there.
They just-
The triangle, it's going back to the first picture, which actually has a little island picture.
Right.
Is
That's
that
the
cover,
motion.
but yeah, I think I.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
No,
That's on page,
We just want-
page 6, go up to page 6.
But if you take out the 3
No,
parking
Mr.
places,
Tulis,
that's what you get.
Mr. Tulis, his motion is to put that back in there, and I'm saying just
You don't
remove that completely.
You don't want that island there.
And I'll have a catch basin, then we'll.
And
take
just
that
have a
away.
catch basin right there. Is what my suggestion, that's just gonna.
Part of my
gonna
discussion,
be an issue.
I would agree with that, Councilman, on that island. It's gonna be nothing but a hassle trying. That thing will never keep landscaping with plow trucks.
And it'll be it. No, it won't be.
It'll be a disaster.
That would be my own.
But I thought there was no island. I thought we had a whole conversation. There's nothing there but curves to feed into a catch basin. Now you're saying
no curve.
Regress, Mr. Tulis, to regress back to the
Yeah.
show layout, which
Yeah.
is.
My understanding that was a raised curb feature with the drain basin with some curb cuts to allow water to go in, but that it would also help alleviate the problem in the winter with people not knowing where to go and this becoming a free-for-all over there, that this would help with traffic flow. In particular, I think someone had mentioned 7 months per year, there's slush and ice in this parking lot.
The failure of the executive session. The original motion did reflect your preference, Dr. Goldrein.
Oh, it did.
Is that accurate, Councilman Tulowitzki, that you agree?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that, Mr. Anderson.
Is it accurate that Dr. Colberity's preference that the island be removed completely is reflected in your preference, and my omission of that preference is the executive secretary's error? Please say yes.
It's not,
Okay.
it's not. It's not.
No,
Councilman, will you modify your motion as it relates to this particular subject?
yeah, so this is currently the third bullet point. in the staff recommendations, and I had not removed that.
That being
It's-
said, I'll pull my motion with that island not coming out.
Yeah. I mean, just as we're in discussion, I would be happy to make that amendment if that's what, if I could understand, if we could understand from staff what the real considerations are for this.
For the removal of a landscape island.
Yeah, if that landscape island is removed, what's bad about it? If it stays, what's good about it?
Jill, if you would like to tag team with me on this from an engineering perspective, that would be helpful. But from my planning perspective, I think for site circulation, landscape island is helpful typically in parking lots. I think that I had bigger issues with a striped parking area being at the landscape island. I feel better about it. I don't love it being completely removed, but if it were removed, I think that's a better option than having the parking spaces outlined there. I think for site circulation, I think it would be challenging for those parking spots. However, from an engineering perspective, I would like to hear what Jill has to say about it.
Kurt.
Thank you, Mr.
Keep an eye.
Is the floor open to you or to me or
It's
whatever?
up to you.
The floor is open to Jill. Ms. Christensen, thank you for that explanation. She's asked Ms. DiTomaso if she could weigh in on the engineering ramifications of having this be just a drainage area with no curbage versus as currently suggested by staff.
It would definitely function better for drainage without the curb, but I agree that it helps to channel traffic if there is a curved area instead of a big wide expanse of asphalt. And what we're looking at on the screen now is not what's actually there because those parking lots will be pushed back further away. So there's actually room to put even larger landscape island, which would possibly make plowing a little bit easier, maybe. I like the idea because I think it's an area where we could do a green infrastructure project personally, but it would be okay with me if it were removed and not striped as parking as well.
And Josie, can you show it where it was tight, where the bike path is removed and instead of people?
Yep.
So the guy talking about? No.
I don't know, where's my lawyer? Because how does this work?
It's on discussion. It's back to us. It's
Back to us?
Yeah.
All right.
Unfortunately, Jay can't speak right now.
So mechanically, if Mr. Tuloski wanted to amend his motion, he could amend his motion, seek a second. Or you could call and vote and have it, pick out the way.
Is your second still good, Mr. Raffin?
With the island coming out,
But he didn't take the island out.
that my motion is not, my second is not good.
Okay.
And if we're talking about discussion, I just,
Discussion.
yeah, I just
I
replaced
thought,
a bunch of curves like this at Striking Van Til in Hammond. That was a problem with this island because those snow plows just took them out at the other time. It's in the middle of the year.
All right, so procedure,
so I'm,
we have a motion without a second after the clarification, so there's a motion.
okay,
Now,
so I would like to, sorry.
Hold on
Mr.
a
Anderson, I
second,
would-
Councilman. Are you finished, Mr. Anderson? Okay, Councilman, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would like to, based on this discussion, I would like to amend my motion to also remove the requirement for the landscaping and have it be a drain, which will make it like Strachan Van Til. I mean, don't put the Strachan Van Til piece in the motion, but you can remove that third bullet point, sub bullet as well.
I will second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
You hear the motion?
We'll send you a copy of it tomorrow.
So it's taken out the two, taking out the 3 parking spaces on the triangle.
Thank you, Denver.
Even the catch
Yeah.
basin, as it is, no curbing.
So the motion, if I'll explain what I think I'm making and let me know if it's wrong. So as the staff report says, if you focus on that, the first dash remains, the second dash remains, but it has only one sub-bullet, which is the first one. The landscaping in the far northwest corner of the site. And then it has the third dash with the crosswalk to be adjusted. And then the final two dashes are removed and there's some language around, coordinating with the site plan or matching the site plan review process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There a motion in a second? There's a motion in a second. Any further discussion?
Can I just get a clarification? The three
No.
parking spots are out. No island, just paved, and the two islands that were supposed to be landscaped now go back to parking spots, correct? Lot 7.
Correct.
Confirm the square footage, box is a box, and the crosswalk is as is.
The crosswalk is as
To Carmel,
Yeah, perpendicular,
perpendicular.
right, and then landscape that one northwest corner.
Yeah, no landscape in northwest corner, yes.
I think there's also language to when after Maple Leaf Crossing Boulevard is built to landscape that trapezoid. I think we may have lost our town planner off the Zoom.
You disconnected that, inadvertently, but.
That's a fault at 9 o'clock, she's automatically.
He'll be back on shortly. You texted me.
But
Councilman, are you done with the motions?
I am.
Okay, you got it, Mr. Anderson.
I got it, Mr. Baker.
Is there a second?
There
We
is.
have discussion, we have clarification. Please, let's vote.
Mr. Speck,
Yes.
Ms. Mellon,
Yes.
Dr. Kulturitis. Mr. Rath.
Yes.
Mr. Tulowitzki,
Yes.
and Mr. Baker.
Yes. Thank you. Approved. Next up, let's keep talking about this at PC 23-011. J. Lee's Maple Leaf Crossing LLC and HPE Munster LLC are requesting approval of a subdivision and replat of the Maple Leaf Crossing PUD to modify lots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and outlots A and B. Ms. Rachel.
Hi.
A little quicker.
We have worked with the petitioner on this one and had some modifications from the original submission, and the petitioner has worked with us and we've got it to a place where staff is happy where the lot lines are falling. From my staff perspective, I would recommend a motion that is just contingent on the previous approval, the conditions that were made with that one. If you look at the lot on this one, Jill, could you maybe zoom out a little bit? So what we worked with between lot 7 and lot 6, there was a funky parcel line that we've squared up a little bit so that if someone's coming back to replace sidewalk, that it makes some sense, where instead of it's coming together at a 90-degree angle rather than a triangle piece within the concrete area. The other amendment that we asked him to make was down by lot 5. There was a property line that cut in the middle of those 4 parking spaces. He's moved that lot line so that all of the asphalt is in outlot B and it's not also in lot 5. So as staff, I'm comfortable with this one moving forward. We did have a join-in petitioner because lot 2 is actually owned by a different property owner at this time, but that was the Hyatt. And they submitted a email that said that they were joining the petition along with Jay. So unless there's any questions from me.
Okay, is there any questions for Rachel on her presentation on this? Anything to add, Mr. Anderson?
Absolutely.
Ms. Jill? Petitioner, would like to speak on this particular issue? No? All right, it's a public hearing. We'll open it up to the public. Everybody just relax. Going once. Thanks for laughing, Jill. Going twice. Closing the public hearing. Mad rush. Bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve PC docket number 23-011, replat of the Maple Leaf crossing plan unit development that modifies lots 2 to 7 and outlots A and B is shown on the Maple Leaf Crossing site plan prepared by Turning Engineering dated 5/19/23. This approval is conditioned upon the planning commission's approval of PC docket 23-010 and any condition as part of that approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Be there none, Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Mr. Speck,
Yes.
Ms. Mellon,
Yes.
Mr. Rappin.
Yes.
Dr. Kulturitis. Mr. Baker.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, thank you for your patience in helping us get through this. And for investing in our community. Next up is findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, if we do this as a group.
Absolutely. Mr. Rappin, since you have that excellent suggestion,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve PC 23005 and PC 23008 finding of fact.
there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Staff, anything to point out? This has all been approved.
We're good from my perspective.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Mr. Speck,
Yes.
Ms. Mellon,
Yes.
Dr. Kulturitis.
Yes.
Mr. Rappin.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes. Moving right along, other business additional items, 23-009, Brian and Patrice Camster are requesting approval of a final plat for Camster's addition, a minor subdivision consolidating 2 residential lots at 1550 and 1546 Park West Circle. Ms. Rachel?
On this one, we had the plat committee approve the preliminary. The final plat was submitted, and it's dated 3/29/23. It looks good, and my staff recommendation would be to approve as presented.
Move to approve PC docket number 23-009, granting approval of the final plat for the Camster addition.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to make 2 lots into 1 lot for a big house. Any other discussion? Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Mr. Speck,
Yes.
Ms. Mellon,
Yes.
Mr. Rappin.
Yes.
Dr. Kulturitis.
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes. Moving right along, request for clarification of the Lake Business Center ordinance number 1602. Way to slip that one in.
No, this is not a long conversation. Meatheads went out of business, and if you look at the ordinance 1602, the ordinance calls out specifically the structure that Meatheads and Noodles and Company are in as Meatheads and Noodles and Company. It's staff belief that this is merely to identify the structure rather than to say that the town ordained and made a condition of the PUD that there shall be a Meatheads, but we do not want to take that administrative liberty. So we are looking for an indication from the planning commission that no, this is an identifying adjective.
I have one question before we jump in and approving this, is that this is a multi-tenant building, correct? So there's 2 tenants, one's Meatheads and the other one's Noodles. Does the other side have Noodles listed as that as well? And if we're cleaning it up, we should clean all of it up, right?
All we're looking for is an indication pencil, a voice vote saying this is an identifier. We're not amending the ordinance, we're not amending the PUD. We're looking for your concurrence with staff's interpretation.
And that comes to us, why?
Because
You went to the planning
if
commission.
there was
Because
indeed,
it's an ordinance thing, right?
if there was indeed a belief on the planning commission that you really wanted to Meatheads and Noodles.
Oh,
If I recall, what Mr. Mellon wanted at that time was a meatballs.
That's right, I remember that.
I thought it was a white tablecloth, that's all it was. I mean, it's.
Yeah, it was, but then he was like, all right, fine, we're having meatballs. So, yeah, I mean, so, anyway, you can,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to use this template as an identifier.
Okay, thank you, sir.
There's a motion, is there a second? And a second, any discussion? Be there none?
Mr. Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Mr. Speck,
Yes.
Dr. Kulturitis,
Yes.
Mr. Rappin.
Yes.
Ms. Mellon,
yes.
and Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Thank you.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion?
You're already in bed.
Yeah.
Oh, look at him.
He is not happy.
be my screensaver.
Yeah, please take a screenshot of it. All right, the next meeting is scheduled as July 11th, 2023. We have a motion to adjourn and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for making Munster a better place to live.
Thanks, Mr. Bill.
The mic drop or something.
That was.